And we will start now again a little bit with PowerPoint. You get the slides, but you actually won't get them before I went through all classes. I don't know when this will be, but it means you have to wait a little bit. In any case, as I said frequently, don't rely on the slides. Take your own notes in any case, and take them in addition to what you see here on the slides. There's one thing that struck me. Going through some very basic things, what we are talking today, which is broadly headed by welfare economics and GDP. This is really very basic stuff. And at the same time, I thought there is so much new in it, even if you go through it again and again. Perhaps you can have an idea why this is the case. It's very simple, actually, that there's always something different in terms of the links we establish. So on the one hand, we are talking about GDP as the core of measurement of economic success. Now what comes immediately to mind is what is success, what is economic success, and what does it really measure? We have had some discussions about it in terms of, for instance, happiness. You may remember Bentham, the principle of greatest happiness for everybody. And then we saw immediately that we cannot really deal with it in terms of practical issues. Happiness is very subjective. Happiness is something where we have different approaches, different understanding what makes somebody happy. And then we talked about, or we are talking about economics, the economy. And again, the question is, what do we understand under the economy? In different contexts, it's different. The understanding is different. As I said in the very beginning, namely in the first semester, economics is a behavioral science. It talks about people, and it talks about what I mentioned here on the top, reproduction and production. And actually it is at the very core the production and reproduction of daily life. We are always dealing with people, with individuals, with people who want to live. And in order to be able to live, we have to produce something. The one thing we have to produce is we have to produce ourselves, meaning we have to live, is production. And we have to produce our offspring, it's reproduction. Reproduction of us, of ourselves in terms of generations. In which way ever, at some stage, it's the end of our life. We may be 120 or even older, but there is a definite end to it. It does not mean the end of humankind, because we have children, we have grandchildren, and Production and reproduction of life, of everyday's life, means as well we have to have shelter, we have to have food, and we have to sleep. We can't do without it. And then we are striving for a certain level. It's not just to survive, but there's more to it. We want to have, whatever it is, a good life. And to have a good life means we want to have good, or we need good nutrition. We just don't want to drink only water, but we want to have something we like. We need shelter. What is shelter? How far does it go? Is it just a roof over the head, or is it something more? Now, areas of societal and individual production and reproduction, or the ways in which we do it, are different. And we talked about it as well. It's important to keep it in mind again and again and again. Different wording. We talked about subsistence economies. It's just about, simplified, producing what we need. An common English expression is to live from the hand in the mouth. You just grab what you have, what is there, you take it, you eat it, and basta. That's it. In many cases, we cannot imagine what it really means to eat something without refining it, raw meat. Just catch a rabbit and eat it. Not for me as a vegetarian anyway, but this is really take it and eat it. And it means that there is no intermediate instance. There is no market. It's just producing, using it. It's only use value. And we may exchange it in inverted commas. Exchange it in terms of we share it with our kinship, with our relatives. But it's not more. There is no long chain or chain of exchange. Now then there is the market production. And of course they are depending on each other and relating to each other, but we are producing for the market because we say we can produce more than we actually need. And it may mean we produce more than we actually need, or it is we collect, we hunt more than we need. Second rabbit, the one for me, the one I bring to the market. And then we move on to the exchange. Because having produced something in addition, makes only sense if we then really go to the market and say, here it is, who wants to buy it? And hopefully we find somebody who is interested in buying it. It may be there is nobody. Then we have to eat the 2 rabbits. So keep this in mind. It is important, especially when we talk later about GDP directly, it is important because all this is happening today, is happening as well in the what's called modern capitalist market economy. We still have subsistence production. Your parents are still giving you something without exchanging. I give you this and you give me this in return. so simple. And as I frequently said, economists have very simple minds. And then they are getting bored and say, we have to do something more. We have to look at a picture that is more complex. And so we look at the differentiation of the economy, of the overall economy. It's not one produces more than he, she needs and goes to the market and there is somebody buying it. But what we have is a differentiation of the entire economy. Again, overall reference is the production and reproduction of daily life. Never forget this. Because if we forget it, we have the typical developments of a crisis. We produce more than people need, than people can consume, than people want to consume. We have this overproduction of money, of the financial crisis is nothing else than an overproduction of goods and of money at the very heart, at the very core of it. As I frequently said again here, because it's coming up again, the difference between use value and exchange value is at the very heart of it. Only if we understand this difference, what are we producing? Is it use value or is it exchange value? Then we can understand the economic process. And now we have a difficulty, because on the one hand, I say only if we understand the difference, we can understand the overall process. And now I apparently contradict this and say we can only produce exchange value if there is use value going hand in hand with it. We will not be able to exchange anything that does not have any use value. Now, the concept of use value, what is useful, is very vague. Is the use value a jacket to be worn, or is the use value a jacket that looks nice and can be worn and makes us feeling well because we like nice clothes? So there is a difference analytically, we have to keep in mind, and at the same time it is going to be understood only as entity, as unit. Now we do this as economists. We say first, very simple. Then we say, well, too simple, we have to look a little bit more differentiated at it. And then we have to narrow it down again and say, what are we actually doing? What are we interested in? We are interested in use value. Difficult to say what it is. We are interested in this, or we think the principle of greatest happiness is leading our action. Everybody wants to be happy. Anybody here who does not want? Okay. Agreed, everybody wants to be happy, but what does it mean? It doesn't mean anything. We cannot put a figure onto it, as I said last time. And then we want to have an economy, exchange values, that makes it possible to exchange things on the market. So simplification again. and looking for economic standards. We have actually two standards in economics. Two requirements. The one, if you want, is the happiness principle. Although it had been discussed, it had been developed in different terms, and we are talking about a welfare function, and we are talking about equity. Equity is similar to equality, the term, but it's not equality, it's more, if you remember the cartoon I showed you, the monkey sitting there, and the bird sitting there, and the crocodile sitting there, and the fish sitting there in front of the tree, all of you have to climb up. This is equality. Equity is you should all have the same opportunity to show your abilities. And for the one, it is about climbing up the tree. For the other, for the fish, it may be swimming in the ocean for 50 miles or something. Now, the welfare function is the one thing. I provided texts on the blackboard. Go to them, read them. There are, I don't know exactly which texts are there, but names like Pijou, for instance, would be typical for this. I mentioned Pijou because we come back to him later. It's an entire branch of economics. Amartya Sen would be definitely one, I remember that he is on the text, on this, who say we have to look at this important point of welfare, defining welfare. It's not just about economic functions, but it is about for what, why do we do this? Is welfare simply the amount of goods, or is it as well the distribution of goods? The other is simply the efficiency requirement. Don't waste resources. That's the simple baseline point we can say there. Be efficient. If you produce something, do it in the most efficient way. Don't waste resources, don't waste time, don't produce too much, don't produce less than you can actually produce, all this. Now the problem for us, for economics is, can we find some form of bringing this together? Is there a way that we say it's the most efficient way, but it's not only the most efficient way, but it is as well, if we want to refer to Bentham, it makes everybody happy. Can we find something to go this way? And of course, you remember, I hope, of course, you remember that we talked about some core concepts behind it, basically. If we look at the welfare function, it is about opportunity cost. Cost-benefit analysis, which is always, or it's usually as well something that relates to our own personal assessment. Study, free time. It means as well what do we prefer? We have to decide, what do we prefer? What is more important for us? Is it more important to sit in class and play with the mobile phone, or is it more important to listen? Is it a better way to ask if you look up something in the dictionary? Is it better to look up in the dictionary, or is it better to ask? Because others may have the same question. And then we talked about the production possibility function. The curve depicting all maximum output possibilities for two or more goods given a set of inputs. Meaning we have the resources, we have the time that we work, we have the raw material, we have the machines we use, and we use them in the way of a maximum outcome. Don't have a machine and use it for 1 hour if you have raw material that you can refine 12 hours. So we talked about this, and I guess it's still clear. Now there is a standard measure, if you want, in economics, and this is a very important one, and that's Pareto improvement. This balancing process I mentioned before is, at least according to one school or one colleague, the idea of having a Pareto improvement, a Pareto optimum. Interestingly enough, Pareto was engineered. So, first and foremost, not economist. So his idea of this optimization came from this background of engineering. This is why I put into brackets of goods. So the standard, one of the standard definitions is change of a given allocation. You have a certain amount of goods, and you want to use them. You want to use them, that's the origin, to build something. But here in economics, we have these goods and want to distribute them, for instance, within this group of the class. Now, how can we do it? Just fight about it. Come here, who is first, who gets, will get whatever he she takes. That's the one way. This is not Pareto-like, but the idea is making at least one individual better off. And the next condition is important, without making any other individual worse off. So, changing the distribution, changing the allocation, improving the situation of possibly only one person, maybe more, but one person, without making any other individual worse off. So if my situation is getting better, your situation should not be disimproved. There should not be any change to the negative. If it's better for somebody else, even better. Definitely no disimprovement. No improvement, that's the Pareto optimum, the definition. No improvement is possible without making at least one individual worse off, referring to a given allocation of goods. Meaning we have a certain amount of goods. They are equally distributed. Everybody gets one piece. This is the optimum. If I want to have one piece more, or you want to have one piece more, somebody else has to give part of it away. Or everybody gives a little bit away, so that at the end of the day, you have more in total. Okay? It's in engineering, that's what I said, it comes from there. The problem, how far can we go in using the resources we have? And this is important, using the resources that we have in an optimal way, without any change to the negative. Can we save something when building a house? Can we save something in time, for instance, building faster, without a negative effect on the quality of the building? So this is one of the standard reference points. And now you can think about a possible flaw of it, a possible difficulty. Do you have any idea what is a problem with such a definition? Even if you stay within this model of thinking, you have a huge problem that you have a highly efficient distribution, but at the same time, it does not guarantee any social justice, any welfare improvement or welfare for all. It just takes a reference, this is the situation, this is the resources we have, and this is the distribution of the resources we have. And now we redistribute only if nobody is getting worse off afterwards. Amartya Sen, Nobel Prize laureate, I don't know when, mentioned again and again things like this. It is indeed possible for even large-scale famines to occur without violating anyone's libertarian rights and without departing from the operation of a free market mechanism. The outcome-independent assertion of libertarian rights is thus open to severe questioning in terms of ethical acceptability. What does it mean? Basically, it means the optimum, Pareto optimum, is highly unequal. So somebody has everything and somebody has nothing. That means a Pareto optimum. Now, if we want to get something for the person who does not have anything, given resources, this is why I said this is important. The given resources, it's not changing, it's not producing more now, but distributing allocation of the given resources. Now, if we want to give something to the one who does not have anything, we have to take it for the one who has very much. Meaning the one who has very much is worse off afterwards. If I enjoy a huge dinner and next to me somebody is starving, the situation can be changed by giving something away, which means disimprovement for me. And as he says, and this is a kind of common agreement to some extent, it is an ethical question. It's not about economics. One can contest this, but this is at this stage an ethical question. It's most efficient question, is it compatible with the welfare function, with the welfare orientation we mentioned before. So Pareto improvement, Pareto optimum as one point of reference. Is that clear? Are there any questions? There is a formula for it. You may go through it with Caesar. I don't know. I don't think that it is very important to know the formula. It's a very complicated formula. The reason why I think it's not very important is because you have many unknown variables. So you calculate something pretending you know, but actually you don't know. So anyway, leave this to the mathematicians. It has some meaning when it comes to optimization, definitely. Now we come to another person, Jean-Baptiste Say, French. Just a side remark, I mentioned again and again, or occasionally, it is important to think when did people live and what is their background. Alfredo Pareto, Italian engineer and economist. Jean-Baptiste Say, French economist and businessman. 1767, 1832 was a time of the change. We talked about this. And now you see, hopefully, how important it is to take this historical perspective. It was a change of society when it was important for the new economic class, these businessmen, to claim their space in society. It was not the feudal baron landlords and whatever you have, the princes who said, I decide, business is what I decide, nothing else. This was a businessman who said, I want to use my resources, I want to use my entrepreneurships, I want to use my ideas to produce something more. It's not depending from this guy up there, but it is depending on my initiative. Adam Smith, you had all these people working around this time, favoring competition. Competition didn't really exist in the feudal system. It was something coming up now. Free trade, which is linked in a way to competition, of course, you remember, I guess, comparative advantage. That is about free trade and lifting restraints on business. The feudal society decided this is what you are allowed to do. And then it was not the feudal system as such, meaning the prince or lord or whatsoever, but there had been guilds. You had been allowed to do a business only if other people allowed you to do it. Meaning, if you had been producing, I don't know, horse carts, furnitures, those who did it already said, okay, you can join us. You cannot join us. There had been rules to education, to training, social rules, but this was the society we are looking at. A change of economic thinking, a change of who is responsible for what. Alors, closed and open economy. If you look at free trade, it was an open economy. It was not we trade within our little circle, but you could trade with other countries. Go to America. Find new markets. Buy raw material. Comparative advantage. What is done where? And the move to a highly dynamic economy. We want to grow. We want to produce more. We want to be more happy, if you want, measured in goods. Huge social changes, huge changes in the mindset, and as well huge changes in terms of the understanding what life is, what social existence is, and what production is. And now there was an important point as well in one area, namely for money. Money existed since donkey years, since centuries. But now, the role of money was becoming more active, if you want. It was a permanently present instrument on the markets. You did not buy things in terms of direct exchange, but there was money you used to basically transfer the value from one thing to the other. I bought from you, you gave me the money, I gave you the money because you gave me the product. In a way, it's very difficult to understand this. The important point is, this money was not meant to store value. It was not meant to be hoarded. If you have money, spend the money. Of course, there had been banks and, but the idea was, the important point is, per se, the important point was, money has only this one function, to circulate. Any money in the bank, simplified, is useless. The real value of money is the money when it circulates. It's a quote from the word of say, and it's commonly known as Say's law. As each of us can only purchase the productions of others with his own productions, as the value we can buy is equal to the value we can produce, the more men can produce, the more they will purchase. Now this is one for slow reading. In the tutorials, we can spend 1 hour to read this one sentence. There's so much in it. Basically it says, we produce to sell to buy other products. And as more we produce, as more we can sell, as more we can consume. So this is the idea, and I was considering to go into other schools of this time. The idea was a circular process of the economy. We produce to sell and sell to get income, to buy, to produce, an endless circle. If you go back, status versus dynamic economy, there you see it. Produce more so that you can sell more, so that you can get more income, that you can buy more, and. Another quote, again for slow reading, and at some stage you will get this on the internet. It is worthwhile to remark that a product is no sooner created than it, from that instant, afford markets for other products to the full extent of its own value. It's the same story. Produce, but we only will produce kind of knowing that somebody will buy it. When the producer has put the finishing hand to his product, he's most anxious to sell it immediately, lest its value should diminish in his hands. We do not want to produce to keep the product. We do not want to produce something that makes you happy, that is useful for you. But we are anxious to sell it immediately, lest its value should diminish in his hands. This is the problem, the value. And the value is the exchange value. Sell it because then you can be sure somebody buys it for the price you want. Nor is he less anxious to dispose of the money he may get for it. Don't hoard the money, put the money into the bank. For the value of money is also perishable, and it's gone. But the only way of getting rid of money is in the purchase of some product or another, or other. So you get the money from selling your product, buy something again for the money, because otherwise you cannot be sure if you can buy it tomorrow. Thus, the mere circumstance of the creation of one product immediately opens a vent for other products. This is the idea. Produce to sell, to get income to buy. And after the break, we will come back to this and try to have an easy understanding, if you want, on it. Thank you.